Hello there, people out there in the world. I am live on X and Facebook and YouTube, and I'm glad to be with you, whoever you are. Currently nobody, but probably there will be more than nobody soon. I can see your comments if you have any comments, and I'm just gonna start because other people will be able to watch this later. So and as we go, if anybody has any comments, I can see your comments, and especially if you have any comments like, oh, everything sounds horrible, or I can't hear your guitar, that kind of comment is especially welcome because we can hopefully do something about it. I'm just gonna adjust this footstool before we get going. This is live. As we used to say on radio, every time there's some kind of a delay, you say, oh, this is live. That's how it is. That's how it is when it's not a recording. Everything is burning. As I watch the video, she crawls out of the ruins, venturing to go out in search of water, the final human need. Although the consequences are almost guaranteed, she goes out in the open beneath the killer drones, which aim their sights on her, then shred her to the bones, then waits for other people who might be fool enough to try come to fetch her body beneath the smoke-filled sky. 2 million people behind the ghetto wall wait for 2-ton bombs to fall, to crush and burn the schools and tents where your whole extended family went. Scores more murdered with each passing day, with so many more on the edge of being taken away, surrounded by tanks that fire at will, and the rest of the world stands by still, completely surrounded with no food getting in. Ghost-like faces, impossibly thin, kids that look like babies, babies born, thirsty, starving, and forlorn. Men are being taken to who knows where, the elderly, the babies, the wounded in chairs, with donkey carts and wagons south on cue, as the drones above the rubble ordered them to do. They're carrying out the general's plan, which means kill all the kids that you possibly can. Anyone moving, soldiers take aim. Who they are doesn't matter, they're all the same. Make no distinctions, orders decree. Killing them all is just how it must be. And right now in New Jersey, you can buy shares in the resort Jared Kushner plans to build there. peaking a little bit on the vocals. Turn that down a little bit. Hello, everybody. That song is called Jabaliya, and it is the title track of my new album, which is obviously called Jabaliya, and which is now out on Bandcamp and will drop on all the streaming platforms on November 1st. On November 2nd, on Saturday, this coming Saturday, Kamala Emmanuel and I, otherwise known collectively as the Ministry of Culture, will be kicking off a tour of Belgium, the Netherlands, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Iceland, the northeastern U.S., and the northwestern U.S., where we will be in all those places over the course of the next 5-6 weeks. The first 1 month of which is in Europe, starting in Belgium. We'll be in Leuven, the beautiful city of Leuven, outside of Brussels, on Saturday. And together with someone who just recently did a graphic novel on Mauda Chowri, the girl who was killed by a Belgian cop some few years ago while I was in Belgium. Wrote a song about her. And good to see people out there. Again, we're broadcasting live on Facebook, YouTube, and X, and please feel free to share this link with anybody who you think might like to watch it with us. And I can see your comments, and good to see them. Hiya and Mina, hello. This is another one I wrote before I wrote Jabaliya, that last song about the ongoing genocidal siege of the north of Gaza, where there are tanks and planes just constantly killing people, including like lots of children out looking for water. They are shelling a hospital, shelling many hospitals with tanks, which means shell. It means it hits the building, destroys part of it, kills people, burns others alive. There are wards with lots of children who are burnt from head to toe, barely can blink, who are waiting for some kind of medical help that never comes because they're not letting in doctors. They're arresting and torturing doctors instead. This is all happening now. And they're carrying out what the generals, the former generals got together and came up with a genocidal plan, knowing as they do that they are fighting a people's war. They're fighting against a people who are united in resistance, which is the same kind of fight that the U.S. faced in Vietnam. And they know that in the course of facing people who are united in resistance against an occupation, the people are your enemy. And when they say that all the time, and then people in the UN or people from the U.S. State Department or whoever else says, oh, you have to fight a war against the organization, Hamas. You can't just fight against you can't declare the people your enemy, and their enemy is not the people. This is a war against Hamas. It's obviously not a war against Hamas. It's a war against the Palestinian people, and that's completely evident, completely obvious, according to what they say and according to what they're doing. So anybody calling this a war against Hamas is a journalist working for an editor who's obviously trying to control the narrative in a completely dishonest way, as most of the Western media is doing. But this is a poem I wrote before I wrote Jabaliya about that plan called the General's Plan. And these are all on the new album as well, with cool instrumentation provided by Chet Gardner from Hawaii. The General's Plan. Bombing daily for well over a year. A death sentence for everyone here. The Lancet said it's 200K killed, body parts strewn, mass graves filled, shooting at families. Then when medics arrive, shoot again, leave no child alive. They announced their intentions to clear the north, and they rolled in the tanks, firing forth. How many months now with nothing to eat? A 20-mile strip of rubble-strewn streets with no power, no water, schools destroyed, an occupying army completely devoid of one little trace of morality. After totally demolishing Gaza City, Beit Hanun, Zaytun, Jabaliya, Khan Yunis, Deir al-Bala, and Beit Lahia, destroying everything everywhere, producing their own footage as if to dare anyone else to do anything to stop the destruction of everything, to stop them from killing Everyone, every daughter and every son. A zone of carnage, ruins, and drones that won't even leave a living child alone. To starve them out is just what they say, as the airstrikes are called in day after day, as the disembodied heads and hands scattered across this forsaken land get bulldozed into the ground to hide the Holocaust, where everyone died, killed by Biden, by Netanyahu, to colonize for the chosen few. The Western media equivocates, along with the leaders of the Western states. Are they really aiming to kill them all? Maybe we should do something to try to forestall the end of this ancient civilization. But they just stand alongside the genocide nation. Who knew Jabaliya would end like this? The ghost of another apocalypse. They're calling it the General's Plan, laying waste to whatever they can. Mechanized warfare run by AI, where anyone living is subject to die. Higher tech killing than ever before. Across the Atlantic, plans being made for condos on the Mediterranean Sea, where the people of Gaza used to be. So, somebody's saying hello from Kenya. I have a song about Kenya. Actually, it's a very relevant song for the subject at hand. There's so much propaganda out there trying to reshape history and rewrite it completely. Like in the case of the history of Jews in the Middle East, they try to rewrite history with the Israeli pro-Israeli narrative, which finds it convenient somehow or another to vilify Muslims and the Muslim world as if it's been a place where Jews have historically been in danger or persecuted, whereas actually that's turning history on its head, because where Jews have been persecuted has been consistently by Christians in Europe. And, so it's turning history on its head, and they try to use this tribal logic all over the place. And that's been tried, also is being tried in various forms in Africa and Kenya and Somalia. And I woke up one morning in my bedroom here in this apartment in Portland and looked at a BBC headline. It wasn't in any other Western press that I saw, other than just this one Kenyan outlet, and that had been picked up by BBC. And it was a story about a massacre that didn't happen. From Nairobi, travel across the country to an arid northern little border town. If you leave early in the day, you'll still be on your way long after the sun is going down. It began as just a ride to the other side, but then was interrupted by the sound of the shattering of glass as the driver tried to pass the men with guns there on the dusty desert ground. There were 2 already dead, another shot as she fled. No question here whose lives were now at stake. When all is said and done, it is instances like this one when every move is one that just might make or break. All passengers get out, men with guns began to shout, "You Christians now get up against the wall." But then everyone stayed still, saying, "Now do as you will, you may leave, or you may kill us all." wasn't far away, just over a year ago today, when people were massacred exactly in this manner. The pattern, it was clear. All the Muslims here would be safe if they just stood beside this banner. Headscarves passed from hand to hand among this human band. Live together or together fall. And then nobody moved, showing each of them approved of saying, you may leave or you may kill us all. It wasn't set in stone. There's no way they could have known that this time, this act of solidarity would see the gunmen leave. Goals left unachieved on the border there in Mandara County. But sometimes you get a chance, and at a second glance you see you've changed the world with the passing of a shawl. There are those who will remember, those who on one day in December said, you may leave or you may kill us all. You may leave or you may kill us all. You may leave. Well, it's lovely to see you all out there from at least a few different continents, it seems. That was a song I wrote in 2015. I was going to see what else is on this new album that I might want to do, given that this is kind of an album release, online album release party. And the album is released on all the streaming platforms on Friday, and the tour of Europe begins on Saturday in Belgium. And if you, again, know anybody in Belgium, the Netherlands, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Iceland, or the northeastern or northwestern U.S., the Ministry of Culture, me and Kamala Emmanuel, will be there in the next several weeks. And at davidrovics.com/tour, you can see all the places we'll be going. And I'll do another song from the upcoming album, although the upcoming album actually is much cooler because it has all kinds of great instrumentation on it. You can hear it on Bandcamp now for free. Stream it, tell people about it. If music can make a difference in the world, then the only way that works is if you share it, which you can do right now with this broadcast as well. A century ago, they came to take away Palestine, and in its wake, the people became refugees in the West Bank and Gaza across the seas. In 2006, Hamas was elected, but in case they thought this might be respected, it was not. As the Western leaders said, democracy is good as long as it's led by people who know how to submit without fighting back a bit. By cooperative colonials who stay within their beat and not go to protest at the fence and have no food to eat. By submissive subjects who quietly lay by, watch their people parched as the water taps run dry. Not by rebels who still dream of their land. Not by anyone who might think of making a stand. Do you support the resistance? If you dare say, yes, I do, then under Section 12 of the Terrorism Act, you are a terrorist too. You don't need to send money It's easier than that. You can violate the law in the window of a chat. If you think occupied people have certain rights, you may find yourself within the sights of the MI5 and of the British Crown, facing 14 years once the trial goes down. A ban on any posting, no communication, silencing people across the nation. Do you support the resistance? If you dare say, yes, I do, then under Section 12 of the Terrorism Act, you are a terrorist too. If you support Ukrainian resistance, sleep well. You won't get caught up in this, pray tell. These charges are all about the man of the hour. First he purged labor, now he's consolidating power, silencing the voices who dare condemn his role in the slaughter of children, as millions of people are under attack, arresting those who might praise the ones who fight back. Do you support the resistance? If you dare say, yes, I do, then under Section 12 of the Terrorism Act, you are a terrorist too. Do you support the resistance? If you dare say, yes, I do, and under Section 12 of the Terrorism Act, you are a terrorist too. Do you support the resistance? I wrote that after Sarah Wilkinson was violently arrested out of her home in England for posting the wrong tweets. And since then, another journalist, Asa Winstanley, has been arrested and detained for the same things, and many others have as well in England violently. They're obviously trying to make a point. Sir Keir Starmer is trying to make a point, purging labor of all of its radicals, a process that has been continuing for many years there in England. Hello, Mohammed. Thank you. I'll do speaking of resistance, when, let's see. Yeah. When the Iranian missile launch happened recently, a couple weeks ago, that was a rare moment of when all over the Arab world, wherever people were beneath those missiles as they were arcing through the sky towards the west, there were parties, cheers. It was unmistakable. Whether journalists were liking it or not, whether they wanted it to be part of their reports or not, if they were reporting live from anywhere in the West Bank or Gaza or Jordan or Iraq, they were hearing people cheering. A year into this bloodbath, with so many families dead, buried beneath the rubble or bombed as they fled, with drones and tanks and fighter jets always nearby, making sure that this will be another day when people die. In their hundreds and their thousands, mostly women and kids, buried beneath the buildings in which they had hid. In Baghdad, Beirut, Beta, they can see the missiles crest as they sail from the east to west. And on the streets below, no one can deny that all the people there are cheering as they look up at the sky. After all the assassinations, all those blinded maimed, after all the thousands of innocents claimed, sentenced to starve or to be buried alive, wondering if any member of their family might survive. Wondering if in this world, if justice has an arc, then it began in some silo with the initial spark, and it rose into the air and came down onto military targets on Israeli ground. And on the streets below, no one can deny that all the people there are cheering as they look up at the sky. The announcement came on the radio from the United States. Hunker down now, the racers left the gates. And in Iran and Iraq, Lebanon and Palestine, people went outside to hear the engines whine and to see the Fatah rockets speeding on their way, lighting up the night as if it were the day, giving those who lost so much a moment of respite as they watched the fireworks so brilliantly bright. And on the streets below, no one can deny that all the people there are cheering as they look up at the sky. A year into this bloodbath with so many families dead, that's another one from the new album Jabaliya called Arc of Justice. And somebody mentioned the Scottish... Oh, somebody's listening in the Scottish Highlands. That's good, because there's not a whole lot of people living in the Scottish Highlands for certain obvious historical reasons, that, or if it's not obvious, it will become obvious in the next few minutes. I think, one of the inescapable things that we always have to talk about, I think, if we're talking about settler colonialism in Palestine, for example, is how it was so engineered. Let's talk about that for a minute, just in case there's people out there who don't realize. Let's give you a little 1-2 paragraph little bit of history here. From 1920 until 1944, for those of you who are watching from the United States or Canada, during those years in the United States and Canada, people from much of Central, Southern, and Eastern Europe were banned from emigrating, including Jews. Even though they knew the Holocaust was happening, they weren't letting Jews in, right? And but they were encouraging Jews to move from Europe to Palestine. And this is one point of agreement among many of the powers, from the United States to Canada to Nazi Germany to Britain. They didn't want Jews. This is just historical reality. You can disagree with you can wish that it were not that way, but this is how it was. The governments did not let Jews in. That's why my nanny Lola, Aaliyah Loro, who she was a German Jew, and the way that she got to England was they let in her, but they didn't let any of her parents, right? Because they were adults. They only wanted the kids. Her parents died in Germany. They were killed. So this is what the kind of policy we're living with here. We're inheriting here, right? Oh no, somebody said somebody else from Scotland, good, but not in the Highlands. Anyway. So that's how they got. It wasn't just that the Zionist thing was popular among Jews. It was never that popular, but certainly leaving Europe was popular, for obvious reasons, for a long time. And and then people had very limited options. So, like my father's mentor, Stefan Volpa, from whom I get my middle name, he's a composer, was a composer, German Jewish composer, and he went to Palestine because he had, there's nowhere else for him to go. And then as soon as he could get out, I think it was like even in 1944, as soon as it was possible, he came to New York, like so many others did, who wanted to go to New York in the first place. They didn't want to go, steal somebody's land. And of course, New York had been stolen hundreds of years earlier. So it was a very different scene, It was the Dutch who played football with the heads of the Indians on Manhattan Island, but that was 400 years ago, right? It wasn't the German Jews doing that. But the same is true of other immigrant groups, other who then go on to become settlers. They're refugees. They were refugees who became settlers. And this is not just true of the Israeli Jews. This is true of others as well. This song will be on another upcoming album that I recorded in France last February, mostly with a wonderful bunch of French, Scottish, Australian, and American musicians. The album's going to be called You Turkey, which is IUTEURKI, You Turkey, versus David Rovics. The band in France is called You Turkey. Once upon a century, people lived above this glen. There were 50 houses here with parents and their children, but someone said they owned what those 4 generations had called their homes across the Scottish nation. Allotments kept on shrinking while the rent would only rise. One by one the broken crofters left the open skies, the frozen shores of Nova Scotia in a far-off colony, or somewhere else across the sea. Once upon a century, from the ways of old, from something like the golden rule to the rule of gold, it's just the logic of the market. Supply and demand says to drive the people from the land. Instead of eerie silence reverberating all around among the gardeners and shepherds, you would hear the sound of the pipes and drums and choirs of the songs that would be sung and the stories that were told in the Gaelic tongue. Once upon a century, you'd never think it could to turn into a field what had been a neighborhood. Once there were the promises of loyalty or clan, and then there was just profit if you can. If we travel back to a different time and space, it was possible for most to afford to live someplace, but it's the logic of the market, each investor's conviction. More money is just grounds for an eviction. Once upon a century, they cleared the highlands for the sheep. Most folks did not resist as the rent became too steep. They packed their things and moved, scattered far and near. You'd never know that they once were here. Just for the whims of capital, the biggest profits for the banks. You fight a war for empire, and clearance is your thanks. From the crofts of Scotland to the sidewalks of LA, if anything has changed, who can say? Once upon a century, people lived above this glen. There were 50 houses here with parents and their children. Italy. Hello, Barbara from Italy. Wonderful. All over the place. Let's see. What do I have? What do I have about Italy? Let's see. So I'm coming to Europe. Me and Kamala will be in Europe on Saturday, by the way. And if you know anybody in Belgium, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Iceland, or then in the northeast or northwestern U.S., we'll be in all those places. And we'd love to meet your friends and relatives. So tell them about the tour, davidrovics.com/tour. And in March 2025, we'll be coming to England, Scotland, Ireland, hopefully even Wales. That's we'd love to see people there then as well. And someday, eventually, maybe we'll get back to Italy. I haven't been there for a very, very long time. I mean, was it 2006 or 7, I think was the last time? I played at the Festival of Alternative Economics. Oh, Burn It Down. Okay. All right. If I'm going to have to do that right away then. because somebody's saying they were just talking to my friend Rod Coronado the other day. And if there's any chance that somebody who was just talking to Rod Coronado might be saying hello on my behalf to Rod, then I'll do this song for that beautiful man and all the others. And this is a song, actually, I'll do a song after I do this one. I'll do a related song. This is a song actually not necessarily about eco-terrorism, as the FBI calls it, but it's about free speech. It's about our First Amendment, which has never been really, it's never really existed except on paper. Rodney Coronado was arrested for a speech that he gave one evening by the San Diego beach. He stated his opinions. They sounded just like mine. Now they want to put him behind bars till 2029. Prosecutor said the problem was the speech. It showed intent. I couldn't figure out exactly what he meant. You can't describe an action, say you thought that it went swell. So what'll happen when we sing this? Who the heck can tell? But we don't like the condo when we're gonna burn it down. Corporate terrorists drive them out of town. We'll bring a lot of gasoline, pour it on the floor, light a match, say a prayer, and run right out the door. Burn it down. Burn it down. We're going to burn it down. 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 That's your part there. I'm hoping that you're all singing your parts. Now, if you just sang that chorus, then you just broke the law to be an eco-terrorist. Now you just gotta flap your jaw. And hey, who knows, by the time you have a chance to blink, whether you're a criminal might depend on what you think. But we don't like the bulldozer, we're gonna burn it down. Corporate terrorists drive them out of town. We'll bring a lot of gasoline, pour it on the floor, light a match, say a prayer, and run right out the door. Burn it down. Burn it down. Burn it down. Burn it down. We're going to burn it down. 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 First they came for Rod, maybe next they'll come for you. Let me tell you what I think all of us should do. Sing the song with me, raise your fist and caterwaul. If we fight together, they can't arrest us all. 'Cause we don't like the Walmart and we're gonna burn it down. Corporate terrorists drive them out of town. We'll bring a lot of gasoline, pour it on the floor, light a match, say a prayer, and run right out the door. Burn it down. Burn it down. We're going to burn it down. Burn it down. Burn it down. Burn it down. One more time with feeling and intent. Burn it down. Burn it down. We're going to burn it down. Burn it down. Burn it down. Burn it down. I was not necessarily going to do a song for the ELF right after that one, but I have another song that is very much related, and I just wrote it a few months ago, and it's this, the reality is we've never really had, free speech in this country. Obviously, it's all relative. We're not having hundreds of journalists killed like they are in Gaza, so it's we have a lot more free speech than they have. But it's very interesting. I think the lack of free speech in the United States is interesting because the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, which was passed as a direct consequence of an armed rebellion called Shays Rebellion, which shook the United States leadership elite to its core and resulted in changes being made in terms of how they were governing. and it also led directly to the Bill of Rights being passed. And probably the best of them is the First Amendment, which is very clear. It says, the government shall not inhibit the freedom of speech or assembly. I mean, it's very clear. It's very short and it's very clear. And it's not. There's no like except for now and then, except for this and that. It's very clear. But then, if you try to organize a demonstration like people were doing in Chicago recently at the DNC, then even if you want to organize a really, really boring demonstration with no live music, you're still going to have a hard time doing it. They won't give you permits until the last minute. I've been to many demos where, because we might mess up the grass by having a gathering, we weren't allowed to have a gathering. That's just a crazy, made up excuse. I mean, the grass on Central Park, for example, that's what it's for, and for people to have gatherings there. And if it gets messed up, then hopefully there's a budget for, replanting or, whatever they need to do. But you can't tell people not to have a demonstration in Central Park because there's, that's where else are you going to do it? Well, anyway. So that's this kind of stuff happens a lot. I mean, in San Francisco, you try playing music in the Bay Area Rapid Transit. San Francisco, a place that's known for being full of radicals who are into free speech. Try playing one song live on the platform on any of those BART stations. You will get chased away before you finish. I know because I did it. But I want to try it again with this song. I was doing it with Woody Guthrie. This Land Is Your Land last time, but this is the one I wanted to sing in the BART next time. Growing up, I learned about this place they call my country. I learned about the revolution, how we got this liberty, how we run the right to protest, to assemble as we like, to set up in a public place and speak into the mic. And nowhere in the document does it say that you need a license in order to play. But the Constitution is my permit. It's right there in black and white. You can read it in the First Amendment, in the U.S. Bill of Rights. Say that to a cop, they might arrest you. Enforcing that ordinance is what they do. Like in 1914, the Wobblies then were beaten and arrested again and again, just for standing on a soapbox and keeping it real. They got to find out how a billy club feels. The Constitution is my permit. It's right there in black and white. You can read it in the First Amendment, in the U.S. Bill of Rights. Now from New York to Chicago, 2024, right there by the lake shore. Permits to protest systematically denied, rejected as soon as people applied, coming up with excuses as the powers that be always seem to do here in the land of the free. But the Constitution is my permit. It's right there in black and white. You can read it in the First Amendment, in the U.S. Bill of Rights. The Constitution is my permit. It's right there in black and white. You can read it in the First Amendment, in the U.S. Bill of Rights. You can read it in the First Amendment, in the U.S. Bill of Rights. Well, that's also on the new album, but this is another song from the new album that's much more closely about the subject of the album more generally. Subject of the past 4 albums of mine, which is the Holocaust in Palestine. There was a young woman from Seattle named Aisha Noor who went to the West Bank, the occupied West Bank, to protest against settlers and the Israeli state taking more and more of the land there, and doing the same thing I did there in 2005 when I was there, but I didn't get shot. Aisha Noor grew up on the Salish Sea, where her parents raised her in her adopted country. She was born across the ocean in the land of Turkey, and the path that brought her up to that September day took her to Standing Rock and to the Seattle streets, and eventually to Palestine, where she would meet activists from everywhere gathered at the scene, where she'd become number 17. Aisha Noor had traveled to the little town of Beta on a Friday for the weekly facing down of the snipers that surrounded the protests every week, where nevertheless the people gathered there to speak out against the madness of those who would expand their settlements to take up all of the farmland, together there to protest among the olives green, where she'd become number 17. Aisha Noor was there, like so many before, who would join the ranks of those who opposed this war against the people of this ancient place, where they spend their whole lives trying not to be erased, where in that one town by itself, since 2021, 16 others have had their lives cut short by a gun, ended by a soldier's bullet, heard but not seen. She'd become number 17. Aisha Noor was shot while she was about to pray, along with other people who had gathered there that day, on September 6th, 2024, and since that date, who even knows how many more have been killed just for existing and put in a sniper's sights, for being Palestinian or for thinking they have rights in the story of the slaughter in Beta, Palestine. She'd become number 17. Aisha Noor, she stood, and the sniper took aim. He was facing no threats, whatever they claim. He was 200 meters from where she fell, but he looked through his sights and he aimed well. Shot another woman in the head to add one more to all of Beta's dead. Another life ended by the war machine, where she'd become number 17. Aisha Noor grew up on the Salish Sea. Well, I will do one for the election. We got an election coming up in the United States, as all viewers are probably too aware. And I don't know who you're voting for, but somebody wants to know if I like Pokemon. I've never played Pokemon, so I have no idea. But I should know something about Pokemon. My wife is Japanese, so it's like my son loves Pokemon, and I've never even figured out what it is. So, one is a cat lady, the other is a beast. One is from the West Coast, the other's from the East. One of them's in favor of peace negotiations. The other supports shipping arms to fight the occupation, at least in the case of Ukraine, where occupation's fine. We're talking about our allies occupying Palestine. They seem to have their differences, but it's hard to tell when it comes to Israel. Regarding gun control, one of them does not support it, even though he just got shot. The other says that all across this land, assault rifles and bump stocks should all be banned. But they both agree that they should receive all the arms they want to import in Tel Aviv. They seem to have their differences, but it's hard to tell when it comes to Israel. One of them appears to believe that it might be time to tax the rich just a little bit. The other one says with a knowing frown, just wait for all the money to come and trickle down. They both like to talk about fair trade, but when it comes to massive amounts of military aid, they seem to have their differences. But it's hard to tell when it comes to Israel. One of them believes that climate change is real. The other thinks elections are there for him to steal. And he also is under the impression that one of his migrant neighbors is gonna eat his cat. But both of them share that identical trait, the belief in what they proudly call the Zionist state. They seem to have their differences, but it's hard to tell when it comes to Israel. One of them believes no one should have abortions. The other one plays with intellectual contortions, trying to explain how lives matter here, whereas with the babies and what they used to call the Near East, let Israel do whatever it will. Pave it all over and kill, kill, kill. They seem to have their differences, but it's hard to tell when it comes to Israel. They seem to have their differences, but it's hard to tell when it comes to Israel. When it comes to Israel. And that is the dystopic reality of it. Well, do a couple more for you. Here's one from last February, which has, I don't know, gotten more attention than most anything else I've written in the past year. So maybe it's because it's a better song. I don't know. I just write them. On the 25th of February, 2024, in protest against a U.S.-sponsored genocidal war, as bombs were falling and exploding all around, burning up the bodies of the children on the ground, huddling in tents and just waiting to die. This young man could no longer stand to hear the cries. On International Drive in Washington, D.C., a young airman walked up to the Israeli embassy as mothers buried babies who had no milk within, as white phosphorus munitions burned off people's skin, as the troops were firing on those trying to find bread, as the body count was building up to 30,000 dead. Dressed in his fatigues, there on Embassy Row, he announced into the camera this was where he'd meant to go, an act of desperation and one designed to share the horrors of the crimes being committed over there, like a mirror to the world, so no one could look away from what's happening in Gaza every minute of each day. He stood in front of the building, as ready as he'd get, He put his phone down so he could live stream it on the net. When he lit the fire, on the day he chose to die, with no way to stop the slaughter, at least he had to try. As the flames rose up, yellow, red, and blue, did he look up at the cross and wonder what would Jesus do? The Secret Service came to point a gun at Aaron's face. The airman didn't move. He just stood in place. He'd come to make a spectacle. That was understood. If he couldn't stop the war, he'd do what he could as his body burned before us in an unmistakable sign. Again and again he shouted out, "Free Palestine!" On the 25th of February, 2024. That's for Aaron Bushnell. Somebody wondering about the chords, email me at david@davidrovics.com and I can send you something like chords. And if you are, anybody is welcome to email me about anything. You can contact me on one of the platforms you're watching on as well, and I'll probably find the message and respond, but email might be easier. And if you are in or you know anyone in Belgium, the Netherlands, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Iceland, or the northeastern or northwestern United States, go to davidrovics.com/tour. We will be playing in all of those places. Me and Kamala Emmanuel, a.k.a. the Ministry of Culture, will be playing in all those countries and areas of this country. And the new album, Jabaliya, hits the streaming platforms on Friday. And if you are a human being with an email account and social media, all that kind of stuff, and friends and people with phone numbers and whatever, it would be wonderful if you took a few minutes to tell people in any of those places we're going to be there, and also to share the music and share this broadcast. It only gets out there if people do that. Even when they do that, it doesn't get out there that much because of algorithms, but it certainly doesn't get out there if people don't share it. So thanks for sharing it if you like it. I don't know if music makes a difference, but I think it does. Historically, it does. So I hopefully in the future as well. So you can rest assured that it has mattered in the past. All the social movements that are actually functional and, getting bigger and that sort of thing, they all involve lots of music, and they always have. So there's probably a reason for that. Probably a reason why the military has bands and all this money for orchestras and puts on shows all the time and has theme songs for every, battalion. All the corporations use music to sell their products. Music is powerful, whether people on the left have any idea if that's the case. It is. I promise it is. Speaking of which, me and Kamala will be playing at protests all over Europe, and we will sing at protests for free. Anywhere in Europe that we're going, anywhere in the U.S., anywhere in the world. If we're there and there's a protest happening when we're there, we will happily sing at it for free. They tend to happen during the weekends, so which for the upcoming tour, that means especially the places will be when we could be there in the weekends. That means basically Brussels, Aarhus, where we'll be playing a couple of gigs, as well as playing at a couple of protests in Aarhus and Denmark on the 9th, around then, 9th, 10th of November. Then we'll be the next time we're somewhere on a weekend is the next weekend in Trondheim, Norway. And the following weekend, we will be in Copenhagen. So those are and then we're in also Boston, Massachusetts, Portland, Maine, as well as Portland, Oregon. And all those places during weekends. And we're in lots of other places in between the weekends. And again, we'll sing at protests for free, but somebody needs to invite us to do that. Otherwise, we won't just show up, with our instruments and stuff. You got to tell me, and then, have the right kind of sound gear for that, which means like a microphone on a mic stand, not a lectern, that kind of thing. Not complicated. We'd love to hear from you. David@davidrovics.com, or drop me a line on X or Facebook or wherever. And, thanks for listening. Everybody out there, it's been a pleasure. And hope to see you on the road and in the streets. And this is a song from Notes from a Holocaust, the first album of songs about the Holocaust in Gaza that I put out at the beginning of 2024. If a song could bring us together across the planet that gave us birth, to act as one, bring peace and justice all around this shattered earth. If a song could take down borders, take down fences, make them fall, liberate all those imprisoned, kept behind the ghetto walls. If a song could stop the bombs, so the next might be the last. If a song could change the future, so it won't be like the past. If a song could be a missile fired from the Iron Dome, if it could protect the children, keep them safe within their homes. If a song could raise an army and transport it on command, take us all to Palestine to defend the Holy Land. If a song could be concrete and put to use to rebuild, if it might turn back the clock, bring back all the babies killed. If a song could be a blueprint, instructions to show us how. If a song could change the world, then let us sing it now. If a song could bring us together across the planet that gave us birth, to act as one, bring peace and justice all around this shattered earth. Dahya Palestine, workers of the world unite. Don't kill each other. See you next time. And in Europe, or northeastern US, or northwestern US, if you're in one of those areas, hope to see you very soon. Bye for now.